Let's talk about one of the most infamous, most chilling, cold cases in American history, the Zodiac Killer. This is the story of a man who terrorized Northern California, who openly taunted the police and the press with these bizarre letters and codes, and then just vanished. We're going to dive into the mystery of the Phantom, who was never, ever caught.
You see, the story of the Zodiac isn't just about the murders. It's about the birth of a legend. A phantom who knew exactly how to manipulate the media, using the front pages of newspapers to build this terrifying myth around himself. He turned his crimes into this twisted, gruesome game of cat and mouse. And the most terrifying part? That game never really ended.
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, it all kicks off on a cold winter night, at a secluded spot. You know the type, a place the local teenagers called a lover's lane. The attack was so brutal, so sudden, nobody could have possibly guessed it was just the opening act in a killer's horrific performance.
The place was Lake Herman Road, just outside Vallejo, California. The date was December 20th, 1968. Think about that, just 5 days before Christmas. For two high school kids, a simple first date was about to become the first confirmed chapter in the Zodiac Killer's reign of terror.
I mean, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were just kids, 17 and 16. They'd just been to a Christmas concert and they drove out to this quiet spot. Then, out of nowhere, another car pulls up. When David started to get out, he was shot, once in the head. Betty Lou, she scrambled out of the car and she ran for her life, but she was shot 5 times in the back. It was just this cold, brutal, execution-style attack with no motive anyone could see. The whole community was left in absolute shock.
For 7 long months, those murders were just a horrible, unsolved local crime. Then, the killer struck again, and this time, he wasn't going to stay quiet. Oh no. This time, he was going to reach out, take credit, and give himself the infamous name we all know, the Zodiac.
It's the 4th of July, 1969. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Maggio are parked at Blue Rock Springs Park, only a couple of miles from that first attack. A car pulls up, leaves, and then comes back a few minutes later. So creepy. A man gets out, shines a blindingly bright flashlight in their faces, and just opens fire. Darlene was killed. But, and this is so crucial, Michael Maggio survived. And for the first time, police had a description of the killer, a stocky guy with a round face.
The killer's need for the spotlight was just unbelievable. Get this, less than an hour after the shooting, he calls the Vallejo police from a payphone, and in this totally calm, monotone voice, he confesses to the murder he just committed and takes credit for killing David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen the year before. The show had officially begun.
So that phone call, that was just a taste. He was hooked on the attention, and he decided to go way bigger. A few weeks later, he mails almost identical letters to 3 different Bay Area newspapers. He wasn't satisfied just telling the cops anymore, he wanted to tell the whole world, and he did it with a challenge they couldn't ignore.
And inside these letters was his calling card, a symbol that would become iconic in the worst possible way. You know the one, that circle with a cross through it, just like a sniper scope. This was his signature, his brand. And for the first time, the public had a name for this phantom, the Zodiac.
But he didn't just write letters. No, he sent a puzzle, a complex cryptogram split into 3 parts, one for each newspaper. He demanded they publish his cipher on their front pages, threatening a killing spree if they didn't. The police were stumped. But who cracked it? A high school history teacher and his wife. And the message inside? Well, it revealed his motive. Killing was just a game to him, and humans were the ultimate prey.
Okay, so now he's got a name, he's got a symbol, and he sent a terrifying message. The Zodiac's attacks are about to get even more brazen, even more theatrical. He's not just a murderer anymore, he's a performer, and the entire Bay Area was his terrified, unwilling audience.
You really have to look at the timeline to see how fast this all escalated. It's just bam, bam, bam. In less than a year, he goes from a secluded lover's lane to a public park to a lakeside resort in broad daylight, and then finally, right into the heart of San Francisco. Every attack was different, and that was on purpose. He was keeping everyone completely off balance.
The attack at Lake Berryessa is pure horror movie stuff. He approaches 2 college students, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, wearing this bizarre black executioner's hood, in the middle of the day. He ties them up before brutally stabbing them both. Cecilia didn't survive. And then he just calmly walks over to their car, takes out a pen, and draws his little symbol and the dates of his attacks right on the door.
He was leaving a scorecard for the police to find.
His last confirmed murder was his boldest yet, October 1969. He gets in a cab in San Francisco, has the driver, Paul Stein, take him to this upscale neighborhood and then just shoots him in the head. But here's the thing. Teenagers across the street saw him wiping down the cab. From what they described, police created this sketch, the face we all now associate with the Zodiac. And here's the part that'll make you crazy. A police dispatcher mistakenly said the suspect was black, so responding officers drove right past a white man walking away from the scene. They might have had him, right there.
To prove he killed Stein, the Zodiac mailed a piece of the cabbie's bloody shirt to a newspaper. But he also included this new, absolutely terrifying threat. Can you imagine being a parent at that time and reading that? It caused mass panic. For weeks, school buses had armed police escorts. The Zodiac was holding an entire city hostage with just a pen and a postage stamp.
So, how in the world do you catch a killer who leaves puzzles instead of clues and seems to strike completely at random? The investigation was one of the biggest and most frustrating in American history. You had multiple police departments all desperately hunting for the same elusive ghost.
Let's just wrap our heads around that number, 2,500. Over the years, investigators looked into over 2,500 different people. But every single promising lead, every person of interest just fizzled out into a dead end. It was like he was a master of creating chaos, leaving just enough to send them running in circles, but never enough to get himself caught.
Out of all those thousands of suspects, one name always floated to the top: Arthur Lee Allen. And on paper, man, he looked good for it. A friend said he talked about committing similar murders. He wore a Zodiac brand watch. I mean, come on. And he lived right there in Vallejo. But, and it's a huge but, the physical evidence just wasn't there. His handwriting didn't match. His fingerprints didn't match. He even passed a massive polygraph test. He was the guy everyone thought it was, but they could never, ever prove it. And then, just as suddenly as it all began, it stopped. The letters stopped coming. The killing ceased. The Zodiac Killer just faded away. He left behind a legacy of pure fear and one of America's most famous unsolved mysteries. The hunt may have slowed down, but the legend was just getting started.
Decades later, technology offered this one last glimmer of hope: DNA analysis. In 2002, scientists actually managed to get a partial DNA profile from saliva left on a postage stamp from 1969. This was it, the moment of truth. They immediately compared it to DNA from their #1 suspect, Arthur Lee Allen. And the result? Not a match. The man police had focused on for decades was apparently cleared by science, and the case went from cold to ice cold.
And here's another one of the bizarre parts of this whole puzzle. In his letters, the Zodiac boasted about killing 37 people. 37. But the official count, the crimes that law enforcement can definitively link him to, is just 5 murders and 2 attempted murders. So what's the deal? Was he a liar who just inflated his body count to be more terrifying? Or are there dozens of other victims out there we just don't know about? It is a truly chilling thought.
So, where does that leave us today? Well, officially, the case is on ice. The San Francisco Police Department has put it on inactive status, which basically means that unless there's some kind of miracle breakthrough, the hunt is over. After more than 50 years, the man in that sketch is still just a drawing, a ghost. And that brings us to the final haunting question that just blows your mind. This guy gave us everything: his name, his handwriting, his innermost thoughts, his ciphers, even his DNA. He put himself on public display like no killer before him. So why? With all of that information, why is one of America's most notorious serial killers still a complete and utter mystery? He's a ghost, forever taunting us with the puzzle he left behind.